The title of my talk, From Carbon to Code,
You set him up.
captures the essence of our belief that we can significantly advance decarbonisation in mining through a thoughtful combination of technology, innovation, and unlocking the full potential of the talent and the people in our industry. And that this is a time of innovation and opportunity. My name is Richard Sellschop. I'm a senior partner at McKinsey. I lead our global mining service line, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you today. In the next 15 minutes, I will cover what we believe are the characteristics of mining's near-term future and what it'll take to win. We believe mining in the near future will need to be more sustainable to achieve the energy transition targets that have been met, more capital efficient in order to both grow profitably and to deliver on the sustainability commitments. It'll need to be more talent-centric in order to unlock the full potential of our people in the industry and attract the next generation to the industry. And it'll need to be more productive in order to maintain reasonable returns and productive growth, or to put it simply, to pay for the 3 points above. Let's explore all of these. On the first point, sustainability. In 2023, total production emissions from mining and metals processing accounted for approximately 15% of global emissions. That's scope 1, 2, and 3. Assuming no major external shifts, this share is forecast to decrease to 13% by 2035, which is not enough to achieve the targets that have been set. So that's 15 down to 13. Most mining companies have set bold targets. Some of them very bold, like Fortescue's target for 2030 to achieve net zero, and others taking 2.5 decades longer, but there are still targets in place. And of course, here in Australia, we have the reformed safeguard mechanism mandating a 43% reduction by 2030 and net zero by 2050, which is obviously supportive. As we rapidly approach the end of this year, hard to believe, the 2030 targets are suddenly very much in medium-term planning horizons. So how will we get there? In many ways, meeting the sustainability challenge is about capital, and lots of it. What I'm showing here on the left-hand side of this chart is that over the next decade, we forecast that the mining industry will need to spend almost twice as much CapEx, just over $5 trillion, that's trillion, as we have in each of the last 2 decades. Spending this money effectively is going to be important. On the right-hand side, you can see that over 2/3 of mining projects run 3 months or longer behind schedule, and about almost half run 20% or more over on cost. Increasing capital expenditure efficiency is going to be critical to not squander our resources and actually be able to achieve the targets that have been set. If we think about the point on talent centricity, that moved, sorry. We will need to unleash the full potential of the people in our industry, both for the capital projects we're talking about and of course, operations. And the nature of mining is changing. What you can see on this left chart is a forecast by our McKinsey Global Institute on the levels of adoption in different industrial sectors in Australia by 2030. And mining is right up there at the top of the list with manufacturing. This means the nature of mining will be changing, which also means the nature of the talent required will be changing. We anticipate requirements for higher social and emotional skills, upgrades in basic digital skills, and of course, very specialized technological skills. However, we've got a challenge. If you look on the right-hand side, this is a global survey. 70% of young talent are not interested in coming into the mining industry. And if we look here in Australia, there's been, over the last decade, a 63% drop in enrollment in mining engineering. So how will we attract this talent? And lastly, if we look at productivity, we believe that mining will have to be more productive in the near future. This is our mining productivity index over about the last 20 years, and we've seen approximately negative 6% productivity change per year. Of course, delivering productivity gains in mining is more difficult than in many other industries. I came originally from the automotive industry, where of course you don't have head grade changes, you don't have mining pits getting deeper. And if we look at some of the stats, it truly is challenging. I mean, the copper average reserve grade has fallen 9% over the last decade globally. If we look at gold and nickel, we've seen 4 to 5% per annum head grade declines per annum for the last 50 years. If we look at mining depth, some of the stats are equally mind-boggling. In South America, Chuquicamata is 1,000 meters deeper than it was 100 years ago. So this is real. But it is important. We're going to have to figure out how to turn this around and make it positive, because we have to pay for both the growth required in the industry and the capex required for sustainability targets and the overall enhancement of productivity in the industry. So if I flip to what we believe it'll take to win in the future, firstly, we believe it's going to require more collaboration and interoperability. A big part of the reason here is scale. In order to bring costs down of new technologies, one of the biggest ways to achieve that is scale, and I'll come back to this point. Secondly, we believe it's going to require more data-driven operations, which will contribute significantly to productivity and talent retention. Thirdly, we believe it's going to require more innovative capital project delivery to both be more efficient and timely in delivering the growth capital that's required and the sustaining capital that's required in this next decade. And finally, we believe there's going to be a need for a greater focus on people to both unleash the discretionary energy of the people in our industry, and secondly, to attract and retain the next generation. Let's explore each of these themes. On the first one, around collaboration and interoperability, my main point here on this rather complicated chart is that we have a scale, not an innovation problem. Again, we have a scaling challenge. Only 10%, as you can see on the right-hand side, of technologies that are really applicable to decarbonizing mining or improving productivity have truly been scaled globally. 85%, if you add up the two middle buckets, are either still sitting in some early innovation or commercialization phase, and I include in that technologies like electric haulage, gas drainage, sustainable fuels. Many technologies you'll see in the hall outside here today. So if we have a scaling challenge and not a technology challenge, how do we make these technologies affordable? Many of these technologies require a rapid and steep cost ramp down curve. Fortunately, we don't need to solve this problem by ourselves. We can leverage what's happening in other industries, as the prior speaker also spoke about. For example, the automotive battery electric value chain is very valuable if we think about the future of haulage in mining. If we look at the numbers on this, historically, climate technologies have shown a 2 to 8-fold decrease in cost for every 100-fold increase in scale. Again, a 2 to 8 times decrease in cost for a 100-fold increase. So this scaling is really important. If we take an example, as I've got on the screen, of a 240-ton battery electric haul truck, and we look at, can we achieve cost parity in the next couple of years? This is by 2030. We believe that we can for most mines. Now this is important because if we look at diesel haulage today, it's often about 30% or a third of total mining cost. It's often 40% of maintenance cost, and it's often 2/3 or so of Scope 1 emissions. So this matters. If we look at technologies in that first bucket to reduce battery and vehicle equipment costs, even available technologies today like LFP batteries are starting to approach the cost point at around $70 a kilowatt hour, and energy densities that are good enough in the 170, 180 watt hours per kilogram range. And of course, they're improving on these cost ramp down curves, as are pretty much most of the battery technologies that could be applicable to us, like NMC. If we take these available technologies and we combine them with rethinking how mines are laid out and optimizing footprints, we believe that there are numerous technologies and numerous mines that can get to this diesel parity point by 2030. When you also then overlay autonomous haulage, you start getting really interesting questions. For some mine layouts, we believe, according to our analysis, that smaller starts making more sense than ultra-class. And that really starts changing paradigms in how mines are laid out and designed. So how do you actually achieve this scale? A big part of it is through collaboration and interoperability. 3 models we've seen work. One is around value chain industrialization, which is really around regional industrialization. Country level policy, regional level policy becomes important. A second is collaborations, and there's many great examples here in Australia and in this hall. For example, what Fortescue is doing, partnering with others on zero emission mining equipment development. And thirdly, if we look a little bit outside our industry for inspiration, vertical integration has really seen a resurgence since Henry Ford used to cut down his own trees and make his own leather for Model T Fords. Now, Tesla does the same in gigafactories like the Nevada one, where they're both building cells through to building battery packs and drive motors. If we shift to thinking about being more data-driven, there's of course many ways we can be harnessing and achieving more with data in mining. One example is drilling and blasting through to material tracing and ore blend optimization, which we've seen, when done right and in an innovative way, can achieve 2 to 3% additional metal production. Fuel analytics can achieve 5% additional cost saving. But globally, metals and mining is in the bottom quartile of analytics adoption. The good news is that there's been significant investments in our industry over the last decades on actually getting the foundations in place. So we don't believe there's any reason to wait. If we look at processing plants, which we believe is one of the biggest value unlocks, of course, these are typically very complex with nonlinear relationships, multiple variables to optimize, and operators are typically relying on personal experience, learned experience, and this can lead to variability in operations. We've seen leading companies really push the thinking on revolutionizing how to use AI to build, for example, set point advisors that leverage this and give co-pilot-like advice. If we look at capital projects, equally, and we want to push the innovative thinking there, how do we move faster? How do we actually develop capital projects faster? Generative AI is starting to prove to be very valuable here, to actually create generative AI developed resource-loaded plans, which are far more optimized for equipment, spatial constraints, and buildability than developing plans in the traditional way. And finally, on people, because I really do want to emphasize that this is as much a people challenge as a technology challenge. We believe to make all of the innovations I've been talking about work, we need to, and to be able to run stable, highly productive operations, we need to be able to unlock the most from our people. These 4 aspects I've highlighted here, we've seen in mining as being particularly relevant around really creating a sense of meaningful purpose, creating a great workplace, enabling personal growth. Many engineers, metallurgists, operators in our industry are very enthusiastic to learn more about the technologies we've been talking about. And finally, around empowering employees to actually go after these improvements. So to wrap up, you've seen me use the word more a lot. That really is the theme here. I hope I've left you with a sense of positivity, which we certainly have as McKinsey, about the opportunities and the ability for our industry to tackle the sustainability and productivity challenge. 4 key messages to leave you with. This is a team sport. We're going to achieve these cost ramp down curves through collaboration and scale. Secondly, the future of mining is both about digging dirt and data. Thirdly, CapEx in the next decade is doubling. We have to do it efficiently and effectively. And finally, this is as much about people as about technology. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the week.